The last time we covered a TSM match, it was between TSM and Immortals, but in the exact same week, TSM took on a weakened Team Liquid, who was missing Broxard, their superstar jungler. This time, TSM take on a Team Liquid that's missing their ADC in Doublelift. Will we see the same result as a TSM loss and continuing their streak of 0-2 or 2-0 weeks? Or will we see them go 1-on-1 this week? Only time will tell. Join me as we break down TSM versus Team Liquid in this week's Anarchy analysis. So, let's immediately jump into the ban phase. And we start with a Xayah ban for Team Liquid. Now, obviously, that is a target at Kobe. It removes a safe option. It also kind of does remove Rakan play as a whole, because you really don't like using Rakan without Xayah, and vice versa, because they work so well together. We then see on TSM's side the Ornn ban, standard ban on red side because he's super duper strong. Aphelios ban then by TSM, again removing top tier ADCs, removing that pool even more. Syndra gets banned out on Team Liquid side. Very, very nice ban, because it's a Bjergsen staple. He's got most of Team TSM's wins on that champion. And Team Sem banned Yuumi. Obviously, a very, very strong support. Provides a lot of heal and poke towards the late game. And also we see banned by Team Liquid the Senna. Now Senna is a newer ban because it was nerfed quite a lot in the bot lane role, and you rarely see it in that role, and it's become more of this support pick by running the glacial augmentation and having a lot of poke with the Q. You just auto attack minions, load of health on them. You don't kill minions as a Senna, obviously, you let your bot laner take them, and it's very, very nice and very, very effective, because you're not, in a sense, losing CS when you were playing that Senna originally, because you had to take your runic sickle and proc your gold gen by hitting enemies with either abilities or autos. But that's the first round of bans. Let's jump into the first round of picks. So, we get into the first pick phase, and immediately Team Liquid lock in a Set. Now, Set is very, very strong in that top lane, as he can deal tons of damage with his haymakers, as well as provide a lot of disruption in team fights with his ultimate and his E, allowing him to just be a nuisance and very, very hard to deal with in team fights. As for TSM's response, they decide to lock in their entire bot lane. Firstly, they start with a Varus, which obviously has a lot of poke you can do with your Q and your empowered Q from your W, as well as a very, very nice stun ultimate in the Chain of Corruption. As for their second pickup, they pick up the Tahm Kench. Very, very safe bot lane pick there. Obviously can provide a Varus a bit more movement, as well as the ability to travel between objectives with that Abyssal Voyage. As for Team Liquid's response, they decide to lock in their own bot lane here in the MF and the Braum. I like the MF pick. Obviously, they don't have the Braum because he's been not taken. Instead, they took Tahm Kench. So it's a very, very nice champion to pick into here, because you can just land a free bullet time into the TSM's team comp. As for their support pickup, it is going to be the Braum in that third pick. And I like the pick. Obviously, it provides a secondary stun option to what Ornn would do, in a sense, with his Ornn, but you just use your ultimate on Braum with a less of a cooldown, shall we say, than what the Ornn does. As for TSM's last pick of the first phase, we do see the Sejuani pick up here. It's a very, very standard pick in the current meta for the jungle. Very, very safe, and it does mean that Team Liquid are probably going to face quite a few bans towards the jungle, considering they haven't locked their jungler in at this point. So we get into the second ban phase, and we start with the TSM banning out the Trundle. And in response, Team Liquid ban out the Aatrox and Aurelia, 2 top laner picks for Broken Blade, who is yet to lock in his pick, as well as TSM locking in Bjergsen's pick. So, 2 target picks. I guess the Aatrox is more focused towards the top side. Aurelia can also be flexed to mid, as Bjergsen can play the champion. However, I've skipped over the Trundle and TSM's last ban, Jarvan. The reason being, I do not like these bans at all. If we take a look at the Team Liquid comp right now, you have an MF and a set, 2 AD attack damage champions. You do not want Team Liquid having an AP jungler, because it gives them a bit more options into that mid. And you've left open Gragas, who is very, very strong. You've already got a set on that side that can disrupt a fight. Why not add another champion that can disrupt a fight? And I do not like the fact that they've banned 2 AD junglers here when you've got Elise, Karthus, Gragas, even Nidalee are options that Team Liquid could play here. And I'm presuming they were trying to force Broxah onto a Lee Sin, but you've left him so many other options in the form of the Gragas and Elise to take an AP option here that would make so much more sense than any of them bans as a whole. So we've reached the most interesting part of the draft, the last 4 picks, where we see a very, very interesting pick here from TSM. They decide to lock in the Kale. Now, this champion is built to scale and also works very well with the low mobility of that Varus and Tom Kenji, provide them a bit more safety. You've also got a lot of scaling because it's built into your passive. Obviously, you gain range at level 6. You gain the Berserker's TFT effect at level 11. And at level 16, that just becomes every auto attack that you throw out is that Berserker effect. Now, Team Liquid decide to respond with their very, very safe mid lane pick in the Zoe. Obviously, you can just land a lot of poke on this champion, just Q and E them down, and they kind of have to respect the amount of damage you do. And it's probably the most safe mid lane pick that was available at this time that we could see Team Liquid pick up, bar say an Orianna. And lastly, it's something that I alluded to earlier. It's an AP jungle pick in the Gragas. Now, obviously, I mentioned earlier how much disrupt this champion actually has with that explosive clasp and body slam combos that you can do. It's very, 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 and I mean that, easy to engage with this sort of team comp that Team Liquid have, with the amount of disrupt they have and the amount of CC. They're quite hard to obviously lose in a team fight against. Well, it's very easy to lose to in a team fight. As for TSM's last pick, it's another very, very interesting pickup. It's the Maokai. The very, very tanky tree has a lot of damage if you go for the AP route, but most people tend to go for the tanky. Very, very strong. Obviously, his passive grants him healing on auto attacks, and he also has a very, very quick attack speed. So he's able to keep up in minion killing with the Zoe quite easily, and does have a lot of damage in his kit. Obviously, he has that big CC ultimate that's very hard to deal with unless you line Arston in the line. But yeah, good team comps overall. Don't like TSM's last round of bans. But yeah, let's jump into the game. So, we're going to jump into the game, and this is going to be a full game breakdown, in my opinion, on why Team Liquid won and why TSM lost. Now, we're going to start with my first point. If we look at the TSM draft here, TSM as a whole really did not have a set style in how they played. You look at the champions that they have a Kayle who's built to teamfight with that ultimate. which we'll be discussing in a bit as well. They had a Sejuani built for picks in a team fight, engage as well. Obviously, you land that all on a champion and everyone dives it. You then have a Maokai who's sort of the same. Obviously, you dive on with your W, and you also then cast ult to CC lock everything up. And then you have the Varus, who's very, very poke heavy, and does have a bit of teamfight prowess with the Chain of Corruption, but he isn't mainly known for that when you've got your Q and your empowered Q built to poke out, shall we say. And then you have a Tahm Kench that's just a saviour to the masses and able to transport you around to get to poking out or team fight or saving a lane, that sort of thing. Whereas if you look at the Team Liquid lineup, Set, very strong team fighter, also good at disrupting and taking champions into your team as sort of an initiation. Gragas, team fighter, explosive cast, disrupting fights, winning them in style. Zoe, poke heavy champion who can do a lot of damage in team fights, there to essentially execute in a team fight. And MF, who is a born and bred team fighter, bullet time, absolutely demolishing team fight, and that's another thing we're going to discuss later into this video, is the use of bullet time. And then Braum, a very strong team fighter, used to, in a sense, soak up so much damage, stop the Varus ult, stop the Varus Q, stop the Sedgel going through, stop the Maokai going any further by using your Q. You stop the KLQ, you also take up the KLE. You're essentially the big don in this game, as it's very hard for TSM to do anything against that comp if they wanted to do whatever they set out to do. So let's have a look at this team fight specifically in the game as to why TSM lost. And I wanted to point out earlier how the MF ult was used. Now in this team fight, Tactical played very well with that ultimate. In a sense, the ult was used not as a full-on damage tool, it was more used as a zoning tool. And they also used Braum ultimate very, very nicely in this fight as well, in a similar sort of way. And the reason being is, yeah, you do a lot of chip damage to a team with the bullet time in use, and yeah, you can chunk someone about a third, maybe a quarter health. But one thing to note is, it was used to zone, and the reason being is, because of the way the ultimate works is it's in such a shaping that's a cone, you kind of force champions to disperse in different directions and go away from it towards either side. And the way a team comp is shaped up, you have your big bulky boys in the front line and your damage in the back. Now the damage is ideally not going to be getting hit or tagged by the bullet time at all, so they're going to stay quite central, whereas because of the shape of the ultimate being in a cone, it's easier for the tanks to walk to either side of the ultimate because they're able to step out of the damage quicker. And the reason that is so important for Team Liquid is because it allows them to get a free and easy passage onto Kobe with a flank from Broxer, as he's able to just proc Predator, walk all the way from the top jungle into mid lane, throw out an explosive cask directly on top of Kobe, who's the only member there, knock him back into the poke and execute damage of a Zoe and the MF, and kill him off, and essentially win the team fight from there. Because you look at the TSM squad, I don't think a Kale would be doing too much damage at this point into the game, and the rest of TSM are just big, bulky boys who really don't do much damage as a whole. Now, TSM kind of set themselves up their own win condition in this game by establishing early dragon control. They were going to go for the Dragon Soul win condition, where you get that you become so bulky, because I do believe it was a mountain rift, so that mountain shield would have been huge on the amount of bulky boys that TSM had. So having that would be their win condition. And it got off to a very nice early start, picking up the first two Drakes. However, Team Liquid, once they knew that the rift was going to be mountain, they kind of realised that they had to force their hand towards the rest of the remaining Drakes that were going to spawn in the game. So TSM kind of had to give the dragon control up. Reason being, Team Liquid had built up such a good early game gold lead, as well as mid-game gold lead, due to getting first blood on Broken Blade in the top lane by a very, very greedy rotation he took, and then taking both Rift Heralds, taking them to different lanes, getting all the turret plating gold with the first one, and then essentially a free turret with the second. It was kind of hard for TSM to essentially join fights with them being so far behind, and that kind of cost them the game essentially. Now, I can't put this all down to Team Liquid's flawless play of this game, as it wasn't them that had really that bad of a game, and I hate to do this, but I have to single out Broken Blade on that KO. And I've watched through this VOD quite a few times and watched how he's played this KO. It really wasn't played the best in my opinion. And I tracked the amount of ultimates he used. He used his ult 3 times all game, and 2 of the times were on himself. Once it was on someone else in the fight. It was on Bjergsen, who was in the front line tanking up, kind of caught out a little. Now, I do believe he did misplay one of the ultimates, where he accidentally dropped it onto himself and then stopwatched when Bifrost was on his way out of the team fight, jumping over the wall with a flash, and I think he tried to place it on him, but instead clicked himself, which was a misclick obviously, but he kind of wasted it a lot, as there was quite a few team fights where Kobe got picked off, or Bifrost got picked off as a whole, and there was no... he had his ultimate up where he could have saved him, but instead he didn't. So whether it was just miscommunication or inexperience of playing the champ, or not respecting the damage that Team Liquid could potentially put out, it kind of gave away pretty easy kills to Team Liquid and essentially the game, because he was unable to save the right teammate or use his ultimate correctly, which was the whole point in picking the KO for that ultimate, because they didn't get Taric, who could do the exact same thing but better, because it's a global, well, it's a group KO ultimate, but it kind of was pretty bad in my opinion how he played it. Normally when I do the ending part of a Anarchy analysis, I like to give an overview of the entire match. This time, I think we want to discuss if there was any possibility of TSM winning this match. And in my opinion, the way they tried playing, they tried to control Drakes, was the right idea, as they had a very, very strong bot side of the map. Obviously, weak side was top due to the early first blood, and Kale having a very, very weak early game due to the fact that she doesn't have the range or bulkiness at early levels before 6. Obviously, she gains the range at 6, so it's easier for her to lane against champions. And yet, that was kind of unfortunate for them. So, Rift Herald was essentially free for Team Liquid, which meant more gold. But Drake was the long game priority for TSM. Now, ideally, if I was TSM, with how they drafted, I would have been looking to set up plays bot side and the map with, say, a gank or two towards tactical and core JJ, and it might have worked because you wouldn't have had the set there. He would have probably teleported in, but if you gank correctly with the Sedge, it really wouldn't have mattered about the TP from the set, because you would have immediately CC chained it with the Chain of Corruption into the Glacial Prism from the Sedge, into maybe a Tom Kench Devour, and it would have been a bit more of a interesting fight, as I would say, if they were able to shut down tactical early, not allow him to build, say, any damage for that ultimate to be able to chip away enemies and push them away. But, you know, that's a sort of a hypothesis. It didn't happen. So, how would this translated into late game if this did happen? Well, you would have had a Varus with a decent amount of gold, who would have had quite a few items, would have had the attack speed and the power to basically solo out Drakes with, say, Bifrost by his side, able to just control the Drake pit with a bit more ease, and when it came to the 4th dragon, would have been a bit more easier to obviously control due to the fact you would have a fed Varus who can obviously deal quite a bit of damage and be a nuisance to the Team Liquid team with that ultimate. And then from there you take the Mountain Soul that you would have gained on your 4 bulky members and absolutely decimated the rest of the game. But that would have been kind of hard to do. Obviously, it's a very, very slim win condition that possibly would never, ever happen, especially against Team Liquid. But that's going to be it for this Anarchy analysis. I've rambled on quite a lot in this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new around here if you want to, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.